I want to bring in now Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois, a member, of course, of the January 6th Select Committee investigating the attack on the Capitol. Congressman, it's good to have you back on the show. Good afternoon to you.
You bet. You too. Thanks.
Let me pick up with the plans for the public hearings that Chairman Thompson laid out. Can you give us any names or at least any sense of the type of witness you're hoping to bring in for those hearings? Do you think it could include any former White House staffers? Give us some kind of sense of that.
Yeah, I wish I could give you more details. I don't want to get ahead of the committee. I'll give you from a layer above that, which is kind of what is the role? What do we want to do? And we want to take the information we know, and we want to be able to paint a picture for the American people. And this is the key, because yes, you know, any potential criminal referrals, all that stuff is important. But what's most important for our committee's work is to figure out what led to January 6th, you know, details about January 6th. And where have we gone since? And so we're going to put that display in front of the American people because they're the audience that needs to hear this.
When you talk about getting to the facts of the matter of what happened, for example, in the days before and on January 6th, former Trump administration press secretary Stephanie Grisham, I know just this week, Wednesday night, talked with her committee. Since then, as I'm sure you've seen, she's publicly spoken about what she remembers of former President Trump, in her words, gleefully watching rioters storming the Capitol from the White House dining room. So let me ask you, and I know you can't get into too much of what she said in the interview, so that's not my question. But do you feel like whatever she said cleared up questions about what Donald Trump was doing when there was silence from the White House?
Yeah, certainly she and others. You know, obviously we still want to get more information, talk to more people. But I think it shows one of two things. So either the president, probably in his best case scenario, was totally incompetent, totally indecisive, and absolutely abdicated his responsibility to defend the Constitution, or, and this is where we can get more information, you know, he was part of this, part of understanding what was going to happen. That's why the days leading up to January 6th, in terms of him specifically, what did he know, who did he talk to, are so important. I mean, you know, it wasn't crazy to predict violence prior to January 6th. I predicted it. I know others did too. You just have to look at social media, and we know he stares at social media. So that's what we want to get down to, is what did he know? And I think that could be really the defining moment between, is what he did criminal, or is it just terribly incompetent?
Well, so this is getting to, I think, a key question that I have for you, right, which is, you know, folks who watch this show know that I interviewed Officer Harry Dunn, who I know you are familiar with, who was at the Capitol on the day of the insurrection. And he said, listen, I can't really have closure until I know more about the facts, right? There are some facts that, frankly, Congressman, you know that I don't know, that you and the committee have, that the rest of the American public doesn't have. So I wonder, do you feel like it is still an open question that former President Trump was involved in perhaps pre-planning, you know, and had some sort of prior knowledge of what happened on January 6th? It feels like what you're saying now, Congressman, is that still an open question?
I'll say this from my perspective and from the things that I know, is there would still need to be, from a kind of a DOJ perspective, particularly, more information probably to come out to pin it on him. That's a big deal, obviously, to pin it on a former president. But I think what we don't want to miss is the fact that the president of the United States has a responsibility, and he watched for 180 minutes as the Capitol was basically occupied and borderline destroyed, and he did nothing. When the vice president has to make calls to send the National Guard, and he's watching television as the president, that in and of itself should be a huge, huge red flag to anybody.
So given that, is it fair to say that at this point you do not feel like you have enough information right now to support a criminal referral against Mr. Trump?
Yeah, I don't want to say yes or no on that. I really don't. We want to gather all the facts we can. And as you know, there's some outstanding court cases. There's a lot of people we have talked to. I just want to make sure I don't get out ahead of all the information we want to gather and have.
Okay, I have a couple more questions for you, but let me just, on that topic, before I move on to a different one. Former Vice President Mike Pence, are there plans to ask him to come in? I know there have been indications you would like to hear from him.
Yeah, we certainly would like him to voluntarily talk to the committee. His staff has been more than helpful with us, coming in and shedding light on a lot of things. And I would be surprised if he didn't want to in some way cooperate. Now, I don't know if that means probably, maybe not, hopefully not a subpoena, but maybe it's written answers to questions or, you know, voluntary interview. But we'd love to hear from him. Obviously, regardless of your opinions of him, he acted nobly that day despite the pressure and could have created a much worse crisis, if that's even thinkable, but it certainly could have been.
And just to clarify, has that formal request for voluntary participation gone out yet, or you're just saying you would like to maybe hear from him?
I would like to see it. I would like to hear from him. I expect any request like that would be announced to the committee and would go out probably soonish. You
and I spoke exactly 1 year ago today. It was a little earlier in the morning as I had a different time slot, but it was January 7th, 2021, the day after the attack. And we talked about the political climate and what you thought needed to happen. I want to play for people what you said a year ago, Congressman. Watch.
I think yesterday it became clear that the president is unmoored from reality and from his oath. And I think the vice president taking over and ensuring that the next couple of weeks are a peaceful transfer is essential right now to the continuation of this strong union. I think it's obvious that there are people that their own political survival demands that they create a different narrative to what happened yesterday. And creating a different narrative is going to lead to something like this happening again or maybe worse.
Now, you saw what happened yesterday. I know that you were not there because I know your baby is going to come any day now. You are on labor watch. The Cheneys were the only Republicans who were seen at a commemoration event at the Capitol. Given where we are a year later, do you recognize your party?
No, I don't. And, you know, it's gotten to a point where, you know, when I was 6 years old, I became a Republican because I liked the idea of strong national defense, you know, limited government. I still believe in that. But what has changed is the use of conspiracy, the absolute lack of courage to call it out, the fear that permeates leaders of the Republican Party against a man that is basically insane, you know, sending out press releases from Mar-a-Lago. It's unrecognizable. And it's sad because the Republican Party will exist, and it's a major political party in the United States. We need conservative voices out there as well. But it is lost in a lot of people's minds any credibility, and it's going to take a while to get it back. We have a truth crisis in this party, and that is the first thing we have to get back to is truth. You can have different opinions, but you can't have a different truth.
There is you describe it as sad, right? What has happened to the party. There is also something that others, I think, would use the word scary to describe, which is the erosion of confidence that, for example, Republicans have. I know fewer than half, as compared to a year ago, don't think their ballots are going to be counted fairly. How do you wrote just yesterday that things feel even worse than they did when the insurrection took place? How do we get from where we are now to a place where Republican voters' faith in the election process is restored? And I don't mean from like an election integrity perspective, right? Because we know there was no widespread fraud. We know that. We know those conspiracies aren't true, that the big lie didn't happen. But for people who do, you know, the people that you're talking about, right? The people who are identifying as conservative, identifying as Republican, how do we get past this moment in the democratic system?
Yeah, I mean, it takes leadership. It takes accountability. January 6th committee is part of the accountability. I think media calling out lies is part of the accountability. People taking recognition of what they choose to believe and choose not to. That's accountability, because in self-governance, look, you can look at what's happening in Kazakhstan right now and see what happens when people lose faith in the governing system. Among even the far right and far left and everybody in between, you have to have a basic compact, which is your vote's going to count and it's going to be counted accurately. Right. And when you undermine that through lies to people, violence is not a surprise. And it is up to leaders, you know, that's the name. You're a leader. You have to lead and you have to tell people the truth. And right now, everybody's got their head in their sand because they want to win re-election. What's winning re-election honestly worth if you can't actually do your job of telling people the truth, or you're ashamed to look at yourself in the mirror? I can't answer that because I take a different approach, but I can't imagine being some of those that are just scared to death of telling the truth to their own people.
Do you hear from them behind closed doors? Do people even, candidly, Congressman, do people talk to you much in your party anymore these days?
Yeah, I mean, a few less conversations, you know, but yeah, we still have conversations. And you know, inevitably, those that are, I will call somewhat reasonable in what they know and understand and may say publicly, but just not aggressively, is, well, if I lose, and I'm going to lose if I speak out, if I lose, somebody crazier is going to replace me. And to an extent, that is true. But now is the time to speak out, because it's either a slow train to crazy or a fast train to crazy where you actually have a chance to derail that. That's what I think is the only chance that's going to save the party and ultimately the Democratic Republic of the United States.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger, thank you very much for being on the show. We really appreciate your time. I know it is a crazy personal time for you as well. Appreciate it. So, while this